going to go to zoo.
What's this chanting? All around the block I hear the people counting, staring at their clocks, and you can see the children holding out their breath. Oh yeah.
This is the first time in the history of Scotland that there's been a debate in the Scottish Parliament about the school starting age.
It would be a big change, and I understand why some people are nervous about it. Scotland's school starting age has been with us since 1870. It is deeply ingrained in our culture, in our habits, and in our expectations. It's not about putting off learning until children reach primary 3. Attending school would still be mandatory. It is about transforming how children learn in what is currently P1 and P2.
There is a school of thought that the sooner children start formal learning, literacy, numeracy, testing different abilities, the quicker they will progress through the curriculum and that it will be to their advantage. Actually, the evidence says completely the opposite, and that children need at least the first 6 to 8 years to really just find themselves. That is the time that they're growing into their bodies, so they need a lot of physical play, a lot of freedom to be outside in nature, doing what comes naturally to them. And that's not wasting time, that's giving them time.
12% of the world start school before the age of 6, and the overwhelming majority of those are ex-members of the British Empire, due to the fact that back in the 1860s the government was deciding when to introduce universal state education, and they went for 4 or 5, not because of any educational reasons, but because they wanted to get their children off the streets. Because their mothers had to go to work in the mills and the mines and the factories. Totally economic, not educational or child welfare reasons really at all.
When you talk to teachers, they will tell you that there definitely seems to be many more children with poor mental health at the moment than when they started their careers.
If we changed the whole approach to early years education, it would have great gains for society and for the population in general. The hope would be that children would have a greater appreciation for the outdoors. Children would have a greater degree of managing risk. They would have developed better relationships and appreciation of things around them, and be far, far more aware. The benefits would be that we would have a fairer society, a society that met the 4 capacities of curriculum for excellence: successful learners, confident individuals, responsible citizens and effective contributors. And if we were to manage that through a change in approach to the early years, I think that would be really successful.
So we've known for a long time, for decades, even centuries, that play is important for children's learning. It's the way they connect with the world, they learn about themselves and how to be in the world. But in more recent times, because of developments in neuropsychology and advancements in brain studies, we've learned that play is more fundamental than that, because it's actually essential for children's health and well-being. Probably it's not an understatement to say it's as important as sleep and nutrition and connection with nature, not just in childhood, but for what happens thereafter.
There's a complete misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of what play means, in the sense of a play-based approach. I think there's a general perception, especially amongst those who are not in the profession, that play is something quite frivolous and unimportant. But I think there's a famous quote about play as a child's work, and that is absolutely right. And so a lot of their education and a lot of their learning is through play. Both unstructured play and structured play, of which there has to be a good balance. But we really have to convince people that play is education, and play is a very, very serious part of children's work.
Play has been described as a protective shield against adversity. It's only through play that you learn how to deal with risk and disagreement and negotiation and all those sorts of things. So children need to play and to build up attributes of competence and confidence, autonomy and resilience. And they do that through their play, especially through physical play, play in nature, and through creative doing. So things that they do with their hands repetitively, like craft, art, drama, painting, all those sorts of things have been shown now to really endow children with the sort of skills they need to deal with difficulties later in life.
Really, if our goal is for children to become educated and to become creative learners and doers, then it's all the more important that they take the time that they have to build and grow their bodies before they start sitting at a desk, looking at worksheets and writing without playing as much as they need to. It takes them away from the work that they cannot go back and do later. They have to do in these early years, building their brain, building their organs, building their bodies, integrating all their senses, so that when they come and actually are ready for desk work, they're not still struggling with distraction, difficulties, and inability to be still and listen and focus, which is really a setback, actually, in the bigger picture.
So the early level part of Curriculum for Excellence is very much steeped in a play-based approach. Unfortunately, presently there's a great drive in terms of raising attainment and closing the gap. The tension created is that in schools we are concerned at the moment with reaching certain attainment levels by a certain stage, but that doesn't necessarily fit with a developmental approach, because what's happening is that children are being expected to progress in literacy and numeracy when developmentally they're not at that stage yet. And if we lifted the barrier, the attainment barrier, to create and to present a more play-based approach, we certainly think that children would be far more rounded and would be in a position to acquire literacy and numeracy skills at a time when they are cognitively ready.
As soon as you start bringing in tests, you change that child-led, interest-driven, active learning culture and environment into something more measured that can be stressful for the teachers, it can be stressful for the children and the parents.
I think that the other barriers is that we need to create a big culture change. I think that we need to have everyone buying into it. I think we need everyone to be fully aware of the benefits of a developmentally age-appropriate curriculum, which would also enhance not only children learning literacy and numeracy when it's age and stage appropriate, but also adding to their health and well-being.
the really frustrating thing is that the countries that are doing the best tend to be countries like Finland, Estonia, Switzerland, where children don't start formal education till 7. And the one that really fascinates me at the moment is Ireland, because back in 2008, the Irish introduced a new early years curriculum up to the age of 6, very much like the sort of thing you'd see in the Nordic countries. No reading and writing or anything, it's all oral language and learning and play. And interestingly, the children that went through that curriculum were the ones who sat for the last PISA, and they've shot up the literacy charts. What you do in early years pays off.
We still need happy water because that's the only thing that will help it.
I think it would be very advantageous if we were to be quite bold and quite imaginative and to introduce a kindergarten stage, perhaps up to the age of between 6 and 7. What I'd quite like to see, and what I think would be beneficial for the children in their development and their learning, would be a model that's very similar to nursery, where ages and stages are mixing, where there's free flow, where there's lots of outdoor sessions, in fact a predominance of outdoor sessions, out in the fresh air, learning how to self-regulate, developing relationships, and also creating time for the children to develop appropriately to reach a stage where they're actually ready to acquire literacy and numeracy skills.
When I was 1, I had just begun. When I was 2, I was nearly new. When I was 3, I was hardly me. When I was 4, I was not much more. When I was 5, I was just alive. But now I'm 6, I'm as clever, so I think I'll be 6 forever and ever.
Another breath, oh yeah.